Hello, folks. Happy Friday. This is Rick Manning, Americans for Limited Government. Sorry, I got in a little bit late here. Been going over a lot of information and wanted to get it down, really kind of get it down so you would be able to know what was going on. Let's just start out right out the front. Jack Smith is attempting to disqualify President Trump. Smith is special counsel appointed by Joe Biden and his cohorts at the very, very dependent Justice Department. And Jack Smith's job is to disqualify Donald Trump from the presidency. That's the whole reason he exists. He is uniquely qualified for the job, as he has no problem with being overturned years later by the Supreme Court on convictions he gets by basically making up laws that he alleges that people violate. And Jack Smith is obviously chasing a court. He wants to be able to indict President Trump, not down in Florida where he's indicted now. He wants to get charges so he can indict him in D.C., where he'll have, for all intents and purposes, a jury who would vote against Donald Trump and will view the trial, guilty verdict in a trial, as a means of disqualifying Donald Trump. Won't be about the merits, it'll be about disqualification. So the question really becomes, can he disqualify him? And how does Donald Trump respond to some of this stuff? Well, first of all, I want to show you how he responds, and it's how you'd expect Donald Trump would respond. And he responds with a pretty big, you can't get away with this stuff. Won't stop 2024 presidential campaign, even if convicted. This is Donald Trump today on the radio with John Fredericks, who is a friendly radio broadcaster. He's got a network in Virginia and one station in Georgia. And Donald Trump said he would continue his 2024 presidential campaign even if he's sentenced and convicted in various charges against him. So Donald Trump, he's telling Jack Smith, you could do what you want, but you're not disqualifying me based on your bogus charges and your jury selection and your effectively chasing a court that you can't possibly lose in. So Prosecutor Smith, you're not going to be allowed to go forward and say, I'm the judge and jury here. We're going to let jurors in the District of Columbia determine whether or not voters in Nebraska get to decide whether or not Donald Trump is going to be president or not. That's what the Democrats are trying. The same Democrats always talk about democracy and all that kind of stuff, and how important it is, people's will is, and all that great stuff. Are the same ones who are trying to use 12 voters in D.C. in a court system to disqualify Donald Trump. If you don't see the irony in that, you must be a Democrat. If you do see the irony, you must recognize what the Democrats are. They are lying hypocrites, because it's not about anything other than maintaining power. And they fear Donald Trump because he's the one person who took on the right and the left in terms of when he became president. And now would be coming back with the knowledge of what he was actually up against, making a far more formidable foe should he be reelected. So Donald Trump said, no, I'm still running, dudes. You can't get away with this crap. So the question is, why are we dealing with this today? Well, the answer is found in other headlines. Hunter Biden contradicts dad's claim nobody in family made money from China. Joe Biden kept saying, he said it in the presidential election. He kept saying nobody in my family made any money from China. And on Wednesday, Hunter Biden went before court. His plea bargain got blown up. He went before a court, admitted that he had in fact accepted over $600,000 in money from China that he did not report on his tax forms. And then the plea bargain deal got blown up for all intents and purposes, went away, and he was forced to plead not guilty to those charges that he told the judge specifically beforehand that he had in fact engaged in that conduct. So Joe Biden has this problem. He's no longer able to say nobody in my family made money from China. And he's got a second problem in that the House committee has some strong proof points, and we'll see if they come through. We'll see what happened from the depositions this week of Devin Archer and Tony Bobulinski, who were Hunter Biden's partners, about just who this big guy person is who got a piece of the pie. And if big guy was Joe Biden, then Joe Biden has as we all expect or suspect, but if it can be proven that Joe Biden, in fact, did receive revenue directly from China, then Joe Biden has a massive political problem. So we can't allow Joe Biden's political problem to dominate the news cycle over the weekend, because we want to make certain that the Sunday papers have bad news about Trump and the news about Biden is old news, and hence no need to recount it, where people have the biggest readership and viewership is on Sunday. So they're trying to create, this is kind of old school way of doing media, but they're trying to create a shield. And so the shield becomes, we're going to go off and we're going to go after Trump. And we're going to find new charges. So what happens? You got takeaways from the new charges against Trump and aid and Mar-a-Lago. So I apologize. If I call this guy Jack White, I apologize. It's Jack Smith. Jack White's a singer. He's not a prosecutor. So Jack Smith, takeaways from the new charges. So the new charges on the classified documents case he's ratcheted up his classified documents case, but as a diversion. And the classified documents case is saying, well, I think we're going to charge and say that Donald Trump was trying to get the tapes, the videotapes in Mar-a-Lago, the tape machines turned off and all this stuff. That all remains to be seen. What I do know is they were unsuccessful in disconnecting. This charge has, up until now, had one Trump aide who was included in it. And the special counsel went so far as to threaten the lawyer for that aide with real personal ramifications, negative ramifications, if he didn't convince his client to cooperate with the special counsel. By cooperating means say whatever the special counsel needs him to say to convict Donald Trump. That's called cooperation. Saying the truth, well, that's not cooperation. That's obstruction in the world of the Biden Justice Department. So he wasn't successful in breaking that individual away. So this draws in another individual at Mar-a-Lago who he is now claiming and who's being charged in this claim. And we'll see what comes of it. Bottom line is, it's all garbage. Okay, this whole thing is garbage. That's you're going to end up with because what the classified documents case doesn't do is it doesn't give any reason, constitutional reason why Donald Trump can't run for president. So you might ask, well, what are constitutional reasons why Donald Trump can't run for president? Well, the answer is, hold on, let's see. The answer is is found in the, what is this, 14th Amendment? Yeah. Let's just look at the 14th Amendment. And in the 14th Amendment, there's something called the disqualification clause. I'm going to scroll up so you can see this a little better, but in fact, I'm going to get it out of the picture so you can see it a lot better. I won't be there. I'll be there. The disqualification clause in the 14th Amendment was written to deal with people who had taken up arms against the United States from the southern states, making them ineligible to be voted back into Congress, or if they were officers, they'd taken positions in the Confederate government and the like. So, disqualification clause says, this is Section 3 of the 14th Amendment. No person shall be a senator or representative in Congress or elector of president and vice president, elector of, so that means they can't serve as part of the Electoral College, or hold any office, civil or military, under the United States or under any state, who having previously taken an oath as a member of Congress or as an officer of the United States or as a member of any state legislature, or as an executive or judicial officer of any state to support the Constitution of the United States, shall have engaged in insurrection or rebellion against the same, or given aid or comfort to the enemies thereof. But Congress may, by a vote of 2/3 of each house, remove such disability. Okay, so that's the Section 3. And I'll just go on. This is from Congressional Research Service. Congressional Research Service is a group of people who do reports for Congress at the request of members of Congress. So you might wonder who do you think's asking questions of CRS about the whether the insurrection clause can be used to disqualify Donald Trump. I'll guarantee you it's people who want to use the insurrection clause to disqualify Donald Trump. In short, so let's just finish this section. In short, Section 3 Section 3 disqualification appears to apply to any covered person who's taken an oath to uphold the Constitution of the United States and thereafter either engages in insurrection or rebellion against the United States or gives aid and comfort to the enemies of the United States, unless a supermajority of Congress removes such disability. So, and 14th Amendment does not expressly require a criminal conviction, but obviously, without a criminal conviction, there's no who decides what's disqualification under it. That would be a court decision, and it would be. Let's put it this way: the courts aren't going to do that. So, what do you end up with in this? You end up with a very simple question. Can somebody who is the sitting president of the United States, be charged with insurrection when in fact that sitting president of the United States was attempting to uphold the law of the country to ensure that the election was fair, was honestly run, and actively discouraged people on multiple occasions from engaging in any activity other than peaceful protest and dissent. So that's ultimately the question the courts are going to have to answer. And if asked, is he disqualified? As challenges come up saying, oh, because of this, he's disqualified. Remember, Jack Smith does not have to convict. Jack Smith only has to make the case. And then people in the state of New York, for instance, could say, or California could say, we don't think Donald Trump belongs on the ballot. Donald Trump not being on the ballot, since those states would almost certainly go to Joe Biden or whoever the Democrat nominee is, that might not seem like a lot. But the reason they want to disqualify him, this is a multi-layered game. The reason they want to disqualify him in New York and Pennsylvania would be their big take. But in places, New York, Illinois, other places like that, California, is because there's only a 5-vote majority for the Republicans in the House of Representatives. So that majority can be overturned in New York and California alone, simply by them having a high presidential turnout in heavy mail-in ballot states for the Democrat ticket and a medium to low turnout for the Republican ticket. And without a presidential candidate on the ballot for the Republicans in those states, it would have a devastating effect on the congressional makeup. That's just the way it works. So you can't. So the fight is going to end up being ultimately in the courts, and when this is going to happen, whether or not a state can use the disqualification clause to take somebody off the ballot under these circumstances. That's the fight. Jack Smith is providing the predicate for it, but he doesn't have the capacity to make those decisions. Those are not his decisions. There's some argument whether or not Congress would have to allow it. It's clear if you need a 2/3 vote of each house to remove this disability, you're not getting Democrat votes to allow Donald Trump to be on the ballot. So you're going to end up with ultimately it's another one of these constitutional amendments where, everybody's going to be deciding what it means without any real clarity. But this is what they're doing. This is the game they're playing. This CRS report is linked in the Daily Torch document, Daily Torch, Robert Romano article, July 20th, 2023. And you just go down there and you'll be able to read the CRS report. And it's interesting reading if you're interested in getting the details and nuts and bolts of how the 14th Amendment works as relates to the disqualification clause. But it's there. We showed it to you for a reason. So let's talk about what the real politics are in this. YouGov did a poll, and the poll was asked a simple question. Okay, first of all, trial heat, Biden versus Trump. This is July 22 to 25. 1,500 U.S. adult citizens means, it's not even registered voters. It's just citizens and then registered voters. Gives you another number. And they don't do likely voters. So you don't have a likely, this is just general people are registered and your average citizen. So your average citizen right now, if you say total, Joe Biden wins in this YouGov poll by 40 to 38, which is margin of error. And it's a poll of 1,500 people. 10% saying they would not vote. Okay. You go down and you say registered voter, and you have, of that, Joe Biden winning 40 of the total, 40-38. Joe Biden wins 44-40. So Biden goes up by 4%. Trump goes up by 2%. The other category goes down. The not sure goes down. The I would not vote, 5% fewer people say they wouldn't vote. They pick a preference. So that's where this is now, according to YouGov. I could give you a lot of reasons why I don't like the YouGov polls, but those are I'm using it, so we're going to talk about it. So remember, all this is happening right now in the midst of all the Biden controversy and whether people know about that or not, or seeing it about him being part of a crime family. The awareness of that is relatively limited. Donald Trump being charged with various things has become, it's almost secondhand. It's a new indictment of Donald Trump is, what's next? But they ask a question: should Trump be charged for January 6th? Do you think Donald Trump should be charged with any crime in connection with the events of January 6th? Obviously, the nation's population has been inundated with January 6th information, much of it unfavorable to Donald Trump, vast majority unfavorable to Donald Trump, even in conservative outlets. So let's look at what Party ID says. Okay, first of all, your total is yes 41, no 40, or yes 44, no 41, unsure 15%. So that's your baseline. 44% of the people who YouGov talked to, who are average citizens, who aren't registered to vote, said Donald Trump should be charged. Of that, of registered voters, 45% say should be charged. 43% of registered voters say shouldn't be charged. People who voted for Biden, 82.7 say he shouldn't be charged. People who voted for Trump, 88 to 5% say he shouldn't be charged. Party ID, this is where it gets interesting. Independents say 46% of independents say yes. 34% of independents say no. Well, why that's interesting is because we know that when you do the polling and you look at this other chart, let's go back to how people were voting in the other chart, and you look at independents, 31% of independents support Joe Biden, 29% support Donald Trump, 22% say they wouldn't vote. So that's a significant number saying they're not going to vote. 9% say they're not sure. So once again, back to the question, it's clear that the independents who are saying that they would support that he should be charged are essentially, that vote is movable, is fungible, because 20% are not sure. And the 20% are not, the fact that the 46% here mirrors on part of the independents, mirrors the 45% registered voters, tells you that this 46% are essentially Democrat voters. Okay, they're pretty much Democrat voters. And the ones who are really independent are not sure. They don't know what they're going to, what it means. Okay, so the point is, the charging of Donald Trump is those voters, a margin of voters are up in the air in terms of whether or not they think it's garbage or not. They're up in the air in terms of what they think about it, or what they're willing to tell a pollster about it. What we know is that that this is an issue. I think we can tease out of this. So this is an issue where, moderates, let's just look at moderates. Moderates are sitting there saying, 22%. So you're, once again, very comparable number to your independent number. 22% of the moderates are saying, I'm not sure what to do with this. That's your margin for victory. In a lot of polls, Donald Trump is ahead with independent voters, and pretty significantly. I haven't seen push polls where it would show if they know about Joe Biden's family conviction problems, what happens. We know that a significant number of Biden voters from 2020 were dismayed when they found out about the Hunter Biden laptop, and said that they wouldn't vote for Hunter, wouldn't have voted for him if they'd known that. So the question is, this comes down to political campaigns. It's up to the Republicans, the Donald Trump supporters, assuming Donald Trump's the nominee, and I think the circle the wagon effect is, more they indict him, the more people like me say we have to fight for him. We can't allow him to be thrown out based on garbage, and basically because he fought for us. So you sit there and you say, but these independents are going to be the swing voters. They're the ones who are going to sit there and make a decision in this election. They're the ones who are going to determine who the next president of the United States is. And the reason we have to be smart about and aware of what's being done by Jack Smith is because the establishment legacy media is not going to tell the story for us. They're going to do the splash headline and say Trump indicted or whatever. New charges, exciting new charges, because they want clicks. You and I are the ones who are going to be sitting there saying, this is garbage. Okay, what are you talking about? He was president of the United States. He had every right to, on the insurrection charge in particular, which is the one they care about, because it's the one that's potentially disqualifying. And that's why we have to go after them and just tear them apart on that. We have to tear them apart on the espionage charge, which is similar. And so that's why we spend our time on the air talking to you about this and hoping to provide you with insights so you can be informed and be able to talk to people. I just use this polling to show you that this is a total flip issue. And even with only 34% of the party of the independents saying they don't think Donald Trump should be charged, he's still getting, of the independents, 29% of the vote, and Biden's only getting 31% of the vote. We have, when you put the name in there, the independents on the Democrat for Joe Biden are basically saying, I don't like him very much. Because if that number were up at 48%, based on that basic idea that he should be charged, this is all he's getting out of that. So where we're at is we as advocates for honesty in America and trying to push back against the two-tier justice system, the more we get people to understand that Joe Biden is running a corrupt scheme with a two-tier system of justice where his son gets one sort of treatment and the rest of us get another sort of treatment. The more we drive that point home, the more it matters to independents. People are actually swing voters. And the key number on this one is 22% who said, I would not vote. Okay, if Joe Biden were the nominee, if 22% say they won't vote, what I don't know is why they say they won't vote. But those numbers, a certain percentage of those people will vote. And the question is, on what basis will they vote? So, and if a large portion of the 22% who say they won't vote are because they think Donald Trump's disqualified and they think that Joe Biden is, and Joe Biden's a crook, then, those voters may not vote, which makes the 19%, the other and the 9%, the swing vote in this election, and maybe the difference between who wins the presidency and not. A lot of stuff for Friday afternoon. I appreciate you all tuning in. I am going to flip over now to our good old chat and see what we're getting in terms of comments so we can talk about it. And I'm going to go over here and just go directly to just me so we don't have that mess. Start somewhere from the top. Yeah, I want to emphasize this to start out. This is really important to be able to get the email alerts. You get articles like the one I referenced, and a lot of interesting stuff that I think you guys would find it really valuable. Sorry, I'm losing my voice a little bit here. When is this going to stop? Vivian, I've got bad news for you. The weaponization of our government and the weaponization of our judicial system against political opponents is not going to stop until we make it stop. And that's one of the compelling reasons that Donald Trump presents to vote for him, because he has having been subjected to it, has every reason to make it stop. So that is our, when is this going to stop? The left is fully committed to what they're doing. And as much as it's painful, as much as I don't want to deal with this is, this is the kind of whether or not we're going to have freedom in this country, whether we're going to have consent of the governed in this country. And so it's going to stop when we make them pay for doing it. They lose an election for doing it. It'll stop when they lose their jobs for doing it. It'll stop when they lose their freedoms for doing it. And that's why we're supporting the Rand Paul bill for that anti-censorship bill that stops government censorship, because it's a means to actually enforce the First Amendment prohibition against violating people's First Amendment freedom of speech rights. So Vivian, the point is not anytime soon. We the left, which is trying to run the table and finish the job, finish the fundamental transformation, won't stop until they are made to stop, and they go to jail and pay a price for doing this. And that's what we're fighting. So we can't get tired, we can't get dismayed, we just have to hang in. Isn't this way overboard? Yeah, Richard, is. It's crazy. But remember, the first thing you have to remember about any of this is the first rule of the philosophy of the left is orange man bad. The second rule is see above. Donald Trump must be stopped at any cost, and that is what they will do. And the reason Donald Trump must be stopped at any cost is because Donald Trump threatens their pathway to a complete administrative state-controlled government. Unbelievable. Trump hasn't done a damn thing wrong. Get a life. Yeah, okay. Well, I'm kind of what we're saying. Kind of, right? It's kind of what we're saying. Okay, Father God, in the name of Jesus, in the highest God, praying for Donald Trump full protection with his family and also other. Scott, thank you for sharing that. That's the right focal point. We can't. There's very little we can do on this earth if God does not. In fact, Paul writes that God's in control of everything, and including government, and that's so prayer is the first and foremost first action that all should take. Betsy, yeah, well, that's part of it. I'm a little more cynical than that, because money's money, power's the game, and they are more concerned about losing the power. And in some cases, that power is what conveys money. But in many cases, it's about trying to create, it really is about trying to transform the world, and in an image that is looks very Chinese, not from an ethnic standpoint, but from a system standpoint. That's what the World Economic Forum tells us. That's what I have to believe they're trying to do. If somebody tells you the answer, sometimes you just have to accept what they're telling you. I pray that what you say is true, Debbie. Mr. Trump is not a politician. That's why they hate him so bad. Our country needs him more now than ever. He's not a politician, but I damn well hope he's become a little smarter one than he was 4 years ago when he took office, because he made an assumption. I'll tell you this story, okay, as long as we're here. As long as we're all here. I'll tell you a little story. Back when when Trump was in office, or really early in the administration, very, very, very early in the administration, I had a opportunity with Robert and some others to sit down with a Trump official who was in the National Security Council, but was somebody who we were talking specifically about trying to end Obama's local zoning takeover, and needing to rip it out by the roots out of the HUD. And this was like very early in the administration. And so we're meeting with this official who was a private sector person, a very smart person, and from the Silicon Valley world. And he was, for some reason, had some housing portfolio in his background. It's never clear to me why we were meeting with him, but we're sitting there, we're meeting with him. And he asked a question, because we were talking about HUD. He goes, "Well, you're in the White House. Why are you talking about HUD?" I go, because they had just made an announcement that was counter to what we were hoping to have happen. And he goes, "Well, that's HUD. That's not us. What are you blaming us?" And it's like, no, you don't understand. Just because they are on this square block of ground in DC, doesn't mean they're not part of your administration. They are your administration. They speak for you on housing policy. So when they say something, you are saying it. But that's not what we think. And I go, well, then you need to talk to them. They're talking for you. And there was a basic disconnect of even understanding that the agencies represented administration policy. And they formed a cabinet. Donald Trump put a cabinet together without apparently some of his people, maybe he understood this, but some of his people even understanding that Those agencies are not independent. They are part of an administration. They're supposed to be a consolidated administration plan. I spent time on the Trump transition team on the labor sector. This wasn't housing, but on the labor side. I spent time on that. Why did I spend time on that? Because we were creating a consolidated, took policies. We sent them up to New York for the Trump people to review and send them back, say, yeah, you can do this, you can't do that. And so we created this whole book, this thick, of Labor Department policies. And every other agency had people doing books, some this thick, but we had books that stacked from the floor to the ceiling of policy recommendations coming out of that transition team. And it was because there was a consolidated administration. And I go in there and I'm meeting with a guy who's supposed to be knowledgeable about housing, and he didn't have a clue that HUD could do anything without him, without their being intimately involved. And it was astonishing to me. So yeah, hopefully Donald Trump, if he goes in for a second administration, will be a hell of a lot smarter, have people around him who are a hell of a lot smarter about how government works. Because they wasted 2 years screwing around trying to figure out how the system worked and putting the wrong people in the wrong places who were obstructing them. And they didn't finally get personnel right until about a year was left in the administration, at which point the damage had been done. They lost their momentum. So, and then they got COVID and the rest was over. So what do you have in this thing? We have a unique opportunity to actually cut the size and scope of government. And you know who doesn't want that to happen? The people who benefit from a gigantic, overbloated, overspending government system that is self-perpetuating blob that overtakes everything. Donald Trump is uniquely a person who has faced the wrath of the blob, the weaponization of the Department of Justice and our intelligence agencies. And in having faced that, presumably won't make the same mistakes of allowing, in that case, back in 2016, President Obama increased the size of the National Security Council, doubled the number of people who were on the National Security Council. He put in all his people in the National Security Council. And then Trump comes in, he inherits those people. Mike Flynn, who's the only one who knew anything about how to fix it, gets blown up in the first couple of days because of a dispute with Mike Pence about what Mike Pence was told or wasn't told. So Mike Flynn gets blown up. The only person who actually knew how to fix it gets blown up immediately. They disqualify Jeff Sessions out of the AG office because he had a conversation with a Russian ambassador for 3 seconds in a greeting line at a Heritage Foundation event at the Republican National Convention. And they disqualify him based on that. Next thing you know, they're running the freaking DOJ. They're running the national security apparatus, and there's nobody who's a Trump supporter who's actually in charge. That can't happen again. That cannot happen again. And so presumably Donald Trump's the one who knows how to fix. He was suffered under it. He spent time thinking about how to fix it. But that's where we ended up where we're at, and I share that story with great respect for the person who was meeting when he was very smart, and he provided some tremendous insights into the real appeal of affirmatively furthering fair housing, and effectively shipping poverty to the suburbs to make it so the inner cities were more pleasing to those who want to live there, shall we say. People who occupy penthouses and the like. So it is it was an interesting perspective from somebody who runs in those circles. And we learned a lot in terms of this, in terms of real motives, and it really helped. And so it was a valuable meeting, but I was just astonished that there was a government disconnect, the part I know about a lot, that there wasn't just nothing there. It was somewhat shocking. Anyway, let's go down to some more. It's not apology. That's why they hate him so bad. Okay, I think that's where I left off. Let's do worst case scenario. Worst case scenario, what's the backup plan? If one falls, one must emerge from the shadows to take their place. Well, Mike, the backup plan is relatively simple. There is, we do a lot of stuff on polling, and I'd encourage you guys to subscribe, and just go to getliberty.org and subscribe, or click on the link that's at the very top of the chat thread. Just click on, this link, and you will be able to, or copy it if you can copy it. I don't know what you can do. But if you go to getliberty.org and click on subscribe and put in your email address, you'll get daily articles from us on this and other subjects that matter. But in terms of backup plan, the backup plan, truthfully, is kind of grim, because the God's honest truth is that we have a situation where there are a significant number of voters, about 15 million voters, who believe that Donald Trump is the only solution to a corrupt system. And if they successfully drive Donald Trump out of the race, he would, or quote unquote, disqualify him. That's 15 million voters who didn't used to vote. We're going to be affirmed, and they're going to say, I was right. This whole system's corrupt. There's no reason for me to be involved. And all those never Trump idiots who run around and say Donald Trump can't be elected, Donald Trump's ineligible, blah, blah, blah. All those never Trump idiots who say, I would rather have Joe Biden doing everything terrible to the country that he's done rather than have Donald Trump be in because their ox gets gored when Donald Trump's in. Those idiots who are willing to turn our country, and I'm looking at you, Bill Kristol, who are willing to turn our country over to the evil that they said they were fighting for years and years and years because of their abject hatred of Donald Trump. If you succeed and you destroy Donald Trump, you will get exactly what you said you did not want to have. And you're going to sit there, and into your grave, you're going to say it was because of Donald Trump. And it's not. It's because of you. It's because of you. Because you didn't actually believe in what you said you believed in. What you really believed in was the status quo, with you getting a little piece to complain about the status quo. But you couldn't do too much about it because it's the status quo. So just sick of the frauds and the people who've been proven to be that. Let's see. We're going to go to Section 5, because I didn't talk about. This is 14th Amendment, Section 5. As I neglected to talk about it, Robert, in his kind way, is not interjecting, but he's actually putting in Section 5 for me to remind me that I'm supposed to do this. The Congress shall have power to enforce by appropriate legislation the provisions of this article. And so it would ultimately be up to Congress to pass legislation to disqualify Trump, not Jack Smith. That is correct, 100% correct. And I should have said that up front because that was the premise of the meme. And I did say it's not Jack Smith, but the fact of the matter is they do have in Section 5, a very direct means of Congress enacting that. And it is a direct means which they would be required to get this Congress with 51 Democrats, 49 Republicans in the House and the Senate, and what is it? It's and it's a 5-vote majority in the House. They'd have to get a law passed by this Congress to do just that, to try to disqualify Donald Trump. So it becomes a food fight. It's not a food fight involving that Jack Smith has anything to do about. He could be a catalyst for it, but it's a food fight we're going to have either way. because the Democrats are desperate to keep Donald Trump off the ballot. And it's a place where we got to hold the GOP to the fire, their feet to the fire, and people like Kyrsten Sinema and Joe Manchin, who are up for election, who are trying to appeal across a spectrum. We're gonna have to try to get them in the Senate. And we're gonna have to try to keep Mitt Romney, who may or may not run for re-election in Utah, his feet to the fire, that he cannot vote to disqualify Donald Trump. Those are things that are going to have to happen. It's going to be a big fight, but it's a fight that's in your hands because you are you provide the consent of the governed. So Jack Smith doesn't get to do this. This is all this stuff that Jack Smith's doing it's hits on the MSNBC website and on the Trump derangement syndrome websites. It's stuff that they say they can give their people hope so they can, and it's a cloud. Most importantly, it's a cloud. It gives a cloud over the election where we don't have to talk about Biden, or I can dismiss anything Biden has done because Donald Trump's worse. That's the cloud they're attempting to put up over everything. It's a false cloud. It's just smoke and mirrors. If I were in impolite company, I might say it's BS. It's up to us to put a fan up and clear the cloud and let people know what's actually happening with Joe Biden, and why the charges against Donald Trump are garbage. We've done a lot of stuff on this, and we'll be doing more. And once again, we appreciate you guys sharing these videos, because we're getting tremendous reach on these videos. We're getting tremendous reach. Some have reached over 100,000 people. You're doing a phenomenal job in that. And I'm going to tell you a secret to the Facebook algorithm and the YouTube algorithm is likes and shares matter. They matter a great deal. This is on any videos. That's what matters, likes and shares. And because they sit there and say, oh, there's a lot of interest. When people stay on the video for an extended period of time, when they're watching 10, 15, 20 minutes of the video, they sit there and they say, or the entire video, they sit there and they say, wow, there's real interest in this. We're going to shift it out. We're going to send it to other audiences that should be interested also. And so if you want this video and what we'll be talking about today and in previous videos to actually get a broader audience, check them out and like and share them. And if you're really inclined, it's helpful to share them in such a way, and it can be on Facebook or YouTube or Rumble or any of the platforms. I don't care, any of the platforms. I talk Facebook because that's where we have about 400,000 followers. But on any of the platforms, share it to your friends, a link from that platform to your friends. Go onto your Outlook account, send an email to your 50 best friends. Boom, please. Thought this was great on the Trump, what the Jack Smith attempt to take down Trump and why it's BS. Send it out. It's valuable. Spreading the word matters. That is the real democracy. When you get down to it, it's the democracy of an internet where they aren't censoring you. An internet where at least on Twitter maybe, or on Truth Social certainly, you sit there and you spread the word. You send your emails out to your friends. They then see it, and in your email, please share this with others. They see it. They share it with others, and you get this accelerating big ball that goes down the hill and ends up consuming everything, and you beat the system. And in our world, we have to beat the system. We are the grassroots. We're the guys who are fighting the battle from behind the trees while the system marches ahead and tries to steamroll everything. That's who we are. So collectively, we are. And you don't have to. And the part that you play is talking to your friends and using this for information and taking information we provide you elsewhere and spreading the word. But it's also just doing the simple sharing of these kind of videos. Because ultimately, my friends, There are more of us than there are them. The challenge is they have the capacity to mobilize millions of people immediately because they have distribution channels that have the ability to reach millions of people immediately. We have distribution channels that reach hundreds of thousands of people eventually. The reason we're growing our Facebook and our Twitter, and we've had substantial growth in all of our social media platforms. The reason we're emphasizing that, the reason I'm pouring dollars back into that, is because by the time we get to the end of this year, I want our regular reach on videos to be in the 100 to 250,000 range. I want the ones that really go viral to be in the million range. So by the time I get to June of 2024, I'm able to double that. And by the time we're October of 2024, we're able to hit millions of people when we come on and say, this is what's going on, this is what needs to happen. We want millions of people to say, yes, spread the word, boom. Because that is how we counteract the dominant legacy media with truth versus the garbage they want to feed us to continue perpetuate a corrupt administrative state. We will win, but we're gonna have to roll up our sleeves to do it. And your being here today is part of that process. And I just praise the Lord for you being here. Thank you very much for spending this Friday afternoon with me. And we will share. This is important. We will prevail. And God bless America. That's all I've got to say. Thank you very much and have a great weekend.